Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. This is our last episode of 2024. I'm not actually sure how many episodes I've done this year, but I think this is number 46. I didn't have to take time off to go be in the hospital or to have surgeries like the 2 years before. So that's been pretty awesome. I did take 2 weeks in November just so that this episode would be ready to come out today. And I moved to releasing episodes every other week in the summertime, mostly just so I could have more time with my boys and to avoid burning out. Because after 2 summers in a row where I went down and I ended up in the hospital, I really wanted to have that not happen this year. I also had the webinar to prepare for and the whole membership thing. Building my own platform took months. But I got to tell you, that's absolutely my favorite thing that I'm doing right now. I love my podcast. Don't get me wrong. I feel like I'm getting better at this all the time. You guys keep tuning in, and that's more encouraging than you'll ever know. But getting to connect on the forum, on my membership platform, is very, very exciting. Today, we're talking about starting fresh. New Year's Day is right around the corner, and I know a lot of you have been waiting for it to get here so that you can finally get going. And if you're hearing this after New Year's Day, please know that you don't ever have to wait for a particular day on the calendar. Pick the next day that ends in Y and go with that. There's no magical thing that happens on January 1st, but I know that the whole idea of a fresh start is very seductive and very motivating for a lot of people. So we're rolling with it. But if you've got your start date all picked out, it might even be the day after tomorrow, I want to do whatever I can to make sure that you get off on the right foot. So we're going to answer the question, and it's one that I get all the time. If you've been here for a while, you'll know that this isn't the first time I've taken this concept on. But I think it's important that I keep coming back to it and revisiting it in different ways. What would I do if I was starting tomorrow? So many of us have to start over completely. You start, you're super motivated, and you get some weight off, and then something happens or things just kind of taper off. And then the next thing you know, the weight is back on and you're starting over again. I was recently asked if I did my podcast for people who were starting for the first time or for people who were starting over. And I told them it's actually a mix of both. But it doesn't matter because my advice is the same, at least when it comes to the concrete side of weight loss. The abstract side, the mindset piece, that can be pretty different depending on where you're at, but the nuts and bolts of it are the same. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's probably simpler than you think. And I know my approach isn't exactly conventional, but that's kind of my whole point. The solutions out there right now for weight loss aren't working. That's why I do what I do. I'm not here to help you punish yourself with extreme diets or impossible calorie targets. I'm here to set you up for sustainable success, a plan that will carry you through, keep you going, and get you to your next goal. If you don't already have a copy of my free guide to getting started for the last time, you can grab one through the link in the notes, and you can watch the replay of the webinar I did about it, and you can snag the free worksheets that I made to make it easier through a link in the notes too. I'm not going to cover all 11 steps from the guide individually today. We're going to come at this from another way. I've got this thing that I call the 3A way. You might have heard of it if you've been listening for a little bit, but it's a handy toolkit for a whack of things: awareness, acknowledgement, accountability. If you're going to lose weight, you need all three. It isn't just about food. It's about understanding your relationship with food and your choices. You can't change what you can't see. You just can't. And it might sound obvious, but it's not, because we do this all the time. Bury our heads in the sand, or we choose not to look because we don't want to know. And I'm not just talking about the scale or calories. You do this with all kinds of stuff. If I was starting tomorrow, whether it was for the first time or for the 15th, here's what I would do. I would start with awareness. I'd spend at least a couple of weeks getting a baseline, just a baseline. It's very important that you track first without making changes so that you know where you're at, because you want to start by making small incremental changes to what you're doing. And you can't do that without knowing your starting point. That's going to make a whole lot more sense as we keep going. So just bear with me here. Track. No changes. No massive sweeping gestures where you get a garbage bag and you clear out the cupboards and the fridge. Hard no. You need to meet yourself where you are right now, right? That's another reason why you're tracking without changing anything, because you need to know where you are. I know how much tracking sucks. I do. But you really can't change what you can't see. And you don't have to use an app if you don't want to. If you want to do it with a notepad, that's fine too. There were no tracking apps the first time I lost weight. If you're not a fan of the technology, you don't have to use it. I've lost weight both ways, and I definitely prefer using an app for tracking, but I use a notepad when I'm building out recipes, so I still do both. It doesn't matter which one you use, so long as you're tracking accurately. The tool you choose to do it with doesn't matter, right? This is about building the habit. So, all right, we are not switching to carnivore or only eating whole foods. Forget all that shit. What do you like to eat? What are you eating now? Track that, all of it, accurately and honestly, even if it breaks your heart. It broke mine. I've talked about my Burger King moment before. And Gladys, don't. Just don't. I haven't said the words good for you, Gladys, in a while, but I will. GFY, babe. I'm not ashamed of where I was. I understand that you are. You've got secondhand embarrassment and secondhand shame for me. I'm just so cringe, and I don't care. Good for you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, sorry. I had a moment on my weight loss journey that seems silly to some people. It really triggers our Gladys friends. But I sat down and I calculated the number of calories in my usual order at Burger King. This was while I was still losing weight. And I cried. Actual tears. Not metaphorical ones, the salty water running down my face kind. Mostly because my usual meal there was more calories than I was supposed to eat for the entire day. And I didn't even think it was that much food. Okay. I also didn't account for the times when I had a milkshake instead of pop because I didn't have the milkshake every time. So it didn't seem like I needed to factor that in. And I didn't include the dipping sauces that I used because I didn't think about it. They were extras. It just didn't even occur to me. Yeah. But the meal was still more calories than I was supposed to take in for the whole day. But I was more sad and angry than motivated or disappointed. I wanted to keep eating the way I was eating. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't do that. Not if I wanted to lose weight. I had to find another way. But I needed a way that still included the foods that I loved. I had tried the abstinence approach more times than I can count or remember. I'd tried to walk away from junk food and fast food and processed food, all that stuff. I tried. Abstinence, when it comes to food, works about as well for those of us who struggle with our weight as it does for teenagers and sex. I'm very happy for the Gladyses who are already cracking their fingers and getting ready to send off an email about my lack of willpower or self-control, how I just needed to dig deeper and try harder, how I might have gotten my weight off, but I'm still a failure. Okay, fine. Yeah, that if I was stronger, I could have walked away. And I'm sorry, but that brings us back to good for you. I'm super happy for you. I'm thrilled that you lost your weight that way and you have so much self-control and willpower. That's awesome. It makes me smile that you think I'm weak, mostly because of what it says about you and the way you see things and move through the world. I'd feel sorry for you if your self-righteousness didn't get in my way. Heavy restrictions don't work. Not long term. They just don't. Meet yourself where you are. And that can be hard too. And at least as heartbreaking as the calorie counts. Dealing with the fact that you're the person who made the choices that got you into this situation sucks. That's why we focus on tracking without changing. No judgment, no shame. Most of us have no clue how many calories are actually in the food we eat. We just don't, right? I could do a whole episode on just this topic. We eyeball it, or we track after the fact and we try to remember what we ate today. The problem with that is that we forget the little bite here and the little bite there. We make all kinds of serving size mistakes. We don't realize that making that small mistake here and a small mistake over there, counting 3 tablespoons is 2, forgetting the butter you sauteed the beans in, little mistakes, little things you forget. Those add up to blowing your deficit for the day. But that's the next thing you need to do. You need to figure out the deficit part. And you can do that while you're tracking what you eat without making changes. You don't have to wait. But you need to figure out your total daily energy expenditure, your TDEE. You're going to hear me say that phrase a whole bunch of times, and it's not easy to get out, but I'm going to keep trying. Now, you can find your TDEE with an online calculator. And yes, Gladys, I know it's an imperfect tool, but it's still the best one that we have. And until somebody else, preferably science, has a better idea for us, we're just going to roll on that one. To lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to take in fewer calories than your body burns. Everybody's body is different. You need to be honest with the calculator. Don't tell it you're working out 3 to 5 times a week if you're not. Yeah, you're going to have a higher TDEE and you'll be able to eat more because you'll have more calories. You also won't lose weight. A pound of fat is 3,500 calories. To lose a pound a week, you need to be in a 500 calorie a day deficit. To get there, you subtract 500 calories from your maintenance TDEE. And I know some of you are thinking about going with a deeper cut to try to lose the weight faster. No, that is a bad idea. It is a super bad idea. In fact, we're going to go the opposite direction. Just keep bearing with me. So you track for a couple of weeks and you figure out what your baseline is. How many calories you're used to having. You just average it out, right? So you've got that number. And now you also know what your maintenance TDEE is, your total daily energy expenditure, that number of calories that your body needs each day for your weight to stay the same at your current weight, not your ideal weight, your current weight. My maintenance TDEE at 338 was 3,500 calories. Okay, every day. 3,500 calories would keep me at 338 pounds. To be in a deficit, to lose a pound a week, I had 3,000 calories a day, okay? But I was used to eating more. I was still gaining weight. So, and I was used to taking in, I figure about an average of, a minimum of 4,000 calories a day is what I was taking in. So to get into a deficit, I needed to cut at least 1,000 calories every single day. That's a big jump. I would argue that it's too big of a jump, which is where the baseline comes in. The gap between your baseline and your TDEE is where I want to start. So let's say your maintenance TDEE is 2,500 calories a day. That makes your calories in a deficit 2,000, but you're used to an average of 3,200 calories a day. That means you've got to drop 1,200 calories a day just to get into a deficit. Let's not do that. I like small incremental changes because they're sustainable. Here's my favorite analogy for this one. Let's say that you've got a friend who can't swim. Are you going to load them onto a boat, drive a couple miles offshore and chuck them in? Or are you going to start in the shallows, let them get their feet wet, get some confidence? Cutting calories is the same thing. You can throw yourself into the deep end and hope like hell that you figure it out and you can keep swimming long enough to get the job done. Or you can start at the shoreline and build your way up. It really reduces the risk of drowning in the one example, and in the other one, it really increases your risk of succeeding. Don't throw yourself into deep water. Don't try to drop 1,000 plus calories from your day. It's too much, too soon, and it's probably not sustainable. Making huge slashes to your calorie intake isn't that much different from waking up one morning and deciding to cut out carbs. It's a big jump. Start with just a couple hundred. Give that a go. If you're used to a daily average of 3,200 calories, drop to 3,000 first. Do that for a week. Then drop to 2,800 for a week. Get yourself to your maintenance TDEE of 2,500. Then start dropping into a deficit. 2,300 for a week. Then 2,100. And then drop to your deficit at 2,000. Yeah, I know it's going to take time. I also know that you're in a hurry and you want to get this done. But you've got to ask yourself if you would rather do it their way and drop to 2,000 immediately, but burn out 6 weeks in, Or do it my way, spend those same 6 weeks incrementally getting into a deficit and then keep going until you're able to get all your weight off. And not everybody's going to need 6 weeks for this process. Some of you will only need a couple. Some of you won't need any, but you're not going to know unless you have a baseline. You need the awareness. Acknowledgement has been blended into this step too. When you break down that gap between eating in a deficit and what you're actually eating now into incremental changes each week, you're acknowledging where you are and that you're going to meet yourself there. You've got the information you need, so take a step back and look at it. Maybe you're eating out more than you realized. Maybe you're snacking on things you don't even remember. What patterns are you seeing? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about understanding where you are so you can move forward. The accountability is when you actually do it. When you start dropping 200 calories a week at a time to get yourself into that deficit so you can start losing weight. And it's the same process for somebody with a TDEE of 1900 calories as it is for someone with 2200 or 3800. It's the same process. Small incremental changes, sustainable changes. All right, before we keep going, I want to make a note about TDEE because a lot of people get hung up on this. When you calculate your TDEE, it's factoring in your activity level, right? Okay, hang on. There's a better way to do this. You've got another number, one that you've probably heard. It gets tossed around a fair bit too. Your BMR. Okay, that's your basal metabolic rate. It's the calories your body needs to function. Even if you lay in bed all day long and do nothing, your body is still burning calories. Then you've got TEF. That's the thermic effect of food. How many calories your body burns to break down the food you eat. Then you've got a bunch of other acronyms like EAT for exercise activity thermogenesis and NEAT for non-exercise activity thermogenesis that work together to make up your TDEE, and your movement and exercise are already factored in. So if you told the calculator that you're doing moderate exercise or you're working out once a week or whatever, and then you start adding calories back onto your day, you're doubling up. And I know we kind of talked about this a minute ago, but there is so much noise and confusion about this that I want to be really clear. Also, I get messages every single day from people who are super frustrated because they're doing all the right things and they're not losing weight. But once we start getting into it, they've got a fitness tracker and they're adding the calories it says that they're burning back onto their day. Mystery solved. Depending on how inaccurate your tracker is, and some of them are up to 90, that's 90% inaccurate, this is how people gain weight when they're trying to lose weight. I try not to rant about this one too much, but I have. We've got whole episodes on this subject. Number 9 is called Don't Exercise to Lose Weight. Number 40 is called Stop Exercising to Lose Weight. I've gone into this in a bunch of the Ask Whatevers because questions come in about this all the time, and it is the root of so many problems for so many of you. I'm going to let it go for now, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it again at some point in the future too. Okay, so you've got your baseline and you're going to start cutting calories from your day incrementally. Perfect. How are you going to do that? Especially when I keep telling you that you can and should lose weight eating whatever you want, just less of it. Spread, sprinkle, pour. That's how you're going to do it. In my guide, I call this part low-hanging fruit. These are the easiest things to cut that are going to have the biggest impact on your calories without impacting your overall satisfaction with what you're eating. We've got whole episodes on this one too. Number 17 is the first one where I took it on formally, but I've talked about it a fair bit. And this was the main topic of my webinar this year, which you can still watch and you can still get the free spread, sprinkle, pour worksheets that I developed to make this all simpler. The links are all in the notes. Foods you spread, sprinkle, or pour onto other foods are the low-hanging fruit because they're not the star of the show, but they tend to be calorie dense and really easy to overuse. Butter, mayonnaise, cream cheese, peanut butter. You're talking at least 100 calories a tablespoon for each one of those spreadables. We sprinkle cheese, sugar, bacon bits. We pour maple syrup and coffee creamer and salad dressing. All this stuff adds lots of calories, and making incremental changes to it will help you cut the calories that you need each day. Instead of 3 tablespoons of peanut butter, use 2.5. Save 50 plus calories, but still enjoy your sandwich. Rinse, repeat, little cuts. Because sure, you could go from 3 tablespoons of peanut butter down to 1. You could save yourself a whole lot more calories, but your sandwich is going to be nothing like what you're used to and what you enjoy. How many shitty sandwiches are you going to eat before you just can't do it anymore? Before you start making your sandwiches with 1.5 or 2 tablespoons, but you're only counting 1 because that's how many you're supposed to be having. Stop eating shitty sandwiches. Small changes, incremental changes. Once you get used to 2.5 tablespoons instead of 3, drop to 2, save some more calories. Weight loss doesn't have to be all or nothing. It shouldn't be all or nothing. That doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. Look at the obesity rates. Look at the recidivism rate. Start small. Start with awareness. How much of this stuff are you using now? You can't make an incremental change to your overall peanut butter consumption unless you know how much you usually consume. That's the nuts and bolts stuff. That's the concrete, lose the weight, get yourself into a deficit part. And that's where most coaches and people who do what I do stop. Calorie management. That's it. You can't lose weight unless you're in a deficit, so it is kind of critical advice. But it's not the whole picture. Our focus on the food is part of the problem. It's not about the food. It's about your relationship with food. So that's what we're going to spend the back half of today's episode working on. Before we do, I want to take a look at a couple of common weight loss myths so they don't get into your way, because these get in a lot of people's way. I've talked about fitness trackers and adding calories back, but that's not the exercise myth that I want to debunk when it comes to weight loss. I want to talk just for a quick, I promise, just a quick second about how exercise to lose weight is a myth, because it is. You don't have to exercise to lose weight. I know that diet and exercise go together like biscuits and gravy or ham and eggs. They don't. Weight loss isn't about exercise. It's about the gap between the amount of calories your body is burning and the amount of calories you are taking in. And yes, Gladys, I know that exercise burns calories. Here's the thing. It doesn't burn nearly as many calories as we all think it does, and it can lead to very serious mindset problems. And I don't mean the very concrete problem that comes when you add calories back onto your day. I mean exercise entitlement. I worked out today, so I can eat more. My body needs the calories. That kind of mindset problem. The diet and exercise myth is dangerous because when people believe it's the only way to lose weight and they can't or won't exercise, they don't try to lose weight at all. The narrative turns into, well, if I can't exercise, I won't lose weight. So what's the point? Why should I bother? That is not an ideal mindset to be in. The second myth I want to take on is that you have to eat clean to lose weight. Nope, you don't. Earmuff time, Gladys. You can lose weight eating nothing but bacon and bubblegum. Is it a good idea? No, but this is a math thing, not a food thing. Calories are calories when it comes to weight loss. Yep, some things take longer to digest, and there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. But I would rather you be satisfied with what you're eating and keep going than hate what you're eating and quit. Another one along the same lines is the whole carbs are evil thing. It's not the case. They're not. There's nothing wrong with carbs. Even sugar, even potatoes or bread or pasta, they're all fine. Carbs have all got 4 calories a gram, just like protein does. Fat's got 9. None of the 3 macros are evil. They've all got their place and your body needs all of them, even carbs. Your brain and your nervous system in particular need carbs. So don't feel bad for even a second if you're eating them. Track them and let all of this horse shit about how carbs are the big bad wolf of weight loss, let it go. Ignore the noise. Forget about the perfection myth too. Shut out all of that noise while you're at it. Consistency is what you're after, not perfection. Consistency is going to beat perfection every single time and twice on Sundays. The emotional and mental toll that chasing a perfect journey will take, that's going to cost you more than you'll gain, and it will probably cost you the whole journey. It's self-sabotage when you tell yourself that unless you can do it perfectly, you shouldn't be doing it at all. Now, this next myth is an oldie, but a goodie, and I feel like it's starting to make a bit of a comeback right now. So, yeah, I know. It's like, anyway. If you eat after 7 or 8 or whatever arbitrary time somebody picked out, you're not going to lose weight or you'll gain weight. There are a bunch of variations on this theme. I've even heard this one, that anything you eat after 7 p.m. automatically gets converted to fat and stored. Yeah, it's all bullshit. Calories can't tell time. Does everybody who works nights and sleeps during the day have a weight problem? No, this is ridiculous. You gain weight when you consistently eat more calories than your body burns. I lost 201 pounds eating exclusively at night, and it's not like I was sleeping during the day. That's my side of this is a whole other thing. I'm just saying that it can be done and that this whole concept is insane. So, what about the relationship with food part? How do you work on that? The good news is that if you do this incrementally, if you lose weight by letting yourself eat the foods you know and love instead of bowing to pressure to do things like eat clean or overhaul your entire diet, you're going to have the emotional space to change your relationship with food. So that's the first step taken care of. Giving yourself the room to do the work instead of being so hyper focused on trying to find ways to turn cauliflower into a good substitute for a pizza crust that you haven't got time to do anything other than obsess about food. Now we need to talk about comfort, reward, and cope. When you're eating food that your body doesn't need, but you want, it's going to tie back to one of those three things. You're eating to comfort yourself, to reward yourself, or to help yourself cope with positive and negative emotions. When you're reaching for food that you're emotionally hungry for, we're going to back up 1 second here. I believe that we're not our bodies. We're the thing that lives inside our bodies. Whether you want to call it a soul or a spirit or a spark or energy, it doesn't matter to me. But we're not our bodies. We're the things that live inside of them. Our bodies need food. They get hungry. We get emotionally hungry too. We want to eat things that we know our bodies don't need. You've had 3 full meals and 2 snacks. Your body's good. It's well covered. Who's hungry now? You or your body? And when the answer is you need to ask yourself what's going on. Are you eating to comfort, reward, or cope? Why? Why that food? Is that normally what you eat when you're feeling sad? Or is that what you have when you're pissed off? Because if you usually have something sweet when you're sad, but you've reached for something crunchy, how long is it going to be before you go get something sweet too? Isn't it kind of self-sabotage to go for crunchy when it isn't what you need to satisfy yourself emotionally in that moment? That's how you start to work on your relationship with food. You have to start looking at it, looking for patterns in your choices and the emotional triggers behind them. What's going on? Why are you making the choice that you're making? It's a big process, and I know it's kind of intimidating. It's a lot to take on, but it's doable. It's going to take time to lose weight sustainably anyway. So you might as well spend that time doing the work behind the scenes to make sure that you'll be able to keep going long enough to get it all off. And then you're going to be able to keep it all off. I really think this is at the heart of why the percentage of people who gain it back is so high. And it's like 85% high. 85% gain it back because they do whatever it takes to control the food so they can lose the weight. But once it's off, nothing has changed about their awareness of the underlying relationship. So they don't have the skills they need to deal with it when the weight starts to creep back on slowly or life gets in the way and boom, there it is. Because once you've lost it, you can gain it back in a hurry. And I did, right? I put about 115 pounds of the 201 I lost back on. Life got nuts. I got lucky because I didn't put it all back on, but it still royally sucked having to take it off. And I was even luckier because I had that whole almost dying thing happen, and it gave me the perspective to understand what was going on and get the work done so I could get it off again and keep it off for good this time. If you need more guidance, if you want more guidance with that process, the relationship with food part, alongside the dealing with food part, take a look at the program. I'm only able to go so deep over here, and there is just so much ground to cover. I'd love to help. Episode 51 goes into the program. I won't go into it now, so you can give that a watch or a listen, and there's a link in the notes to the program itself for you too. So If I was starting again tomorrow, here's what I would do. Super quick. I would track what I'm eating without changing anything so I can get a baseline of where I'm at. I'd figure out my TDEE and the gap between what I'm eating now and my TDEE minus 500. I'd incrementally start moving my daily calorie intake down until I was eating 500 calories less than my maintenance TDEE every day. I would do that by making small incremental changes to what I was eating, starting with the foods I spread, sprinkle, or pour. I would let go of all the bullshit diet myths and focus on what I actually can do to keep things sustainable. I would eat the foods I know and love so that I have the emotional space to start working on my relationship with food. And I would start with that by looking at comfort, reward, and cope. I hope you have a very happy new year. 2025 is going to be a big one for all of us. My main focus for the new year is my private membership platform. I've built a site. I built my own social media site for women to come together away from the algorithms and the judgment and the noise on social media and the ads. I'm doing live calls at least twice a week, and there are customized playlists for every stage of your weight loss journey. I'm building a real community of women and for women who are losing weight, and it's completely separate from any other social media platform. This is not your typical membership where you get a content library plus a community that's actually a Facebook group. You get my content library and a community all in one place, which means you've got the privacy and the safety to get the kind of support that you actually need. You deserve more than social media, so I built something just for you. I will be back next year with a brand new episode. Keep trying, keep tracking, don't be intimidated, and don't give up. You've totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.